everyone, my name is Payanna and welcome to my book channel. And today I'm not talking about one book, but two. Damned by Chuck Palahniuk and Hell of Death by Vince Kramer. They are both comedy novels set in hell, and I am a total sucker from anything that is funny and that is related to hell in any way, so obviously I jumped on these. Chuck Palahniuk's quite a famous author. He wrote Fight Club, which I haven't read, so I can't comment on that. But this was on my wish list for quite a long time. I read it about a year ago, probably over a year ago now, so please be indulgent if my memory of it is a bit vague. This one was, I went to have a look on Eraserhead's website. Eraserhead is an independent book publisher who specialise in bizarro literature, which is basically anything weird and nonsensical. And this was what they were advertising on their website, so obviously I jumped on it. There was also a photo of Vince Kramer on the website. There he is. He is wearing a Korpiklani t-shirt. And I saw that and just instantly went, we're going to be friends. So I'm going to be comparing these two novels to see which one is better, at least in my opinion anyway. I'm going to start with Damned because it's the most famous one of the two. So this tells the story of a 13-year-old girl called Madison. She is the daughter of a famous movie star and a billionaire who are both basically massive hypocrites. Basically they're all about publicity stunts. They make a big thing about ecology and saving the planet and send Madison to hippie camps for young teenagers. However, they send her there in their private jet, so the carbon footprint is quite considerable. Madison is a character that is full of contradictions. She's 13, and there are certain aspects of her that reflect her. The fact she is 13, the fact she's grown up in a pretty isolated environment. She is very naive about certain things. She's also very judgmental about certain things. But the way she talks like a 65-year-old woman who is just blasé with life. She makes a lot of literary references. So she's a bit of an odd character. So, anyway, she dies and goes to hell. She dies technically of a weed overdose, if that's possible. So she starts off in hell in a cage with a group of other teenagers, all in separate cages alongside each other. And she makes a big thing about the girl in the cage next to her's shoes. She has counterfeit shoes. And Madison goes on and on about this, which is something she does a lot, and it's pretty tedious. So this whole passage is pretty tedious. A demon comes, eats one of the teenagers, and then he grows back to kind of set, like, this is what happens in hell. Nobody can die because they're already dead. So if they get eaten, they just grow back. Okay. Then they break out of their cells and go and visit hell, and it starts to get a bit interesting. I enjoyed the description of hell. There's a mountain of toenail clippings, because apparently all toenail clippings end up in hell. There's also the sea of wasted semen. I'm not going to go into that. And like various other landscape points, I guess, like that. So I thought that was a pretty good idea. She ends up working in a call center, because also all call center employees are actually damned souls and they are calling you from hell. So I kind of liked that. And the plot twist at the end is that she isn't actually a real human being. She's in fact a creation of Satan. Like, he wrote her story, basically, and he created her as a character. And then her and all her friends go to Earth for Halloween because it's the only day that they can visit Earth, and they can only go there in the clothes that they died in. And it turns out Madison didn't die of a weed overdose, she died strangled by a string of Hello Kitty condoms. Glamorous. So she can only go to Earth with like a string of Hello Kitty condoms hanging around her neck. Okay. Vince Kramer's novel is also about a bunch of annoying teenagers. However, I did find them slightly more interesting. We'll get into that. The book starts with a mass shooting in a high school, and it starts off, so pretty strong start to it. This guy is shooting the teenagers in this high school because he works at McDonald's. He is a strong believer in McDonald's, and the teenagers in this high school held a protest against McDonald's. So that's his reason for bursting in there with a gun and shooting them. Okay. Amongst the people in the school, there is a police officer who's there to investigate a series of murders on young men who've been found drained of their blood. So he is an adult posing as a teenager. He tries to call his colleagues to get them to come and give him some backup, obviously, because he's all on his own. And they won't come because there's also a shootout going on in the McDonald's where the high school shooter works. And there's quite an amusing line where they just say that they won't come because they are just a bunch of millennials and no one cares about them, so they can die, it doesn't matter. You can't send any of the force at all over? Officer Luke Kapowski queried. No, the police force is totally occupied, sir. Over. But it's a school, Officer Kapowski pleaded. It's full of kids. Over. Who cares? It's just a bunch of millennials. The officer on the other end laughed. Over. So, what I thought was more interesting about these characters is the kind of fantasy / superhero elements that that Vince Kramer gives to them. So one of them is a vampire. She's the one the police officer's been going after because she's the one who's been killing the teenagers. So she dies and goes to hell. You've got another one who's a superhero known as the Frogger. He's got frog powers. He can jump very high. And also communicate with people telepathically. So there's that. You've got a girl with asthma, who was the vampire girl's best friend, I think. And the police officer. When the teenagers get to hell, they have to travel through every circle of hell in order to find the one that is best suited for them. And honestly, it's an interesting way of seeing hell because, when they travel through these realms, none of them are really exactly what you would expect. In the first circle, they have to watch Julia Roberts movies whilst weird things are done to them. I can't talk about this stuff too much on YouTube. This gets graphic. Beelzebub's realm is full of shit. And there's actually 2 chapters on Beelzebub. The first one, the characters fall into the massive shit, and for them it smells like Pop-Tarts. And they actually ask the author if they can reboot the chapter and go back and start it again. I have to say, I think that's a nice touch in very surreal comedy novels like this. It reminded me of the beginning of Spike Milligan's Pacoon, when Spike Milligan's describing Pacoon, and Pacoon's interacting with him and saying, no, why are you describing me this way? I don't want to look like this. I don't have a copy of Pacoon, I think. I really should rectify that. But, yeah. So that's quite an interesting... that the author is always they kind of are aware of his existence. He comes up periodically as being the kind of god figure that has, power over everything. It's quite amusing. They get to Belphegor's realm and he gets them all to sign up for pyramid schemes, because that's what he does. They also learned that Satan is no longer the ruler of hell because hell is a democracy and Satan couldn't present himself more than 666 times, so he is no longer president of hell. I think Belphegor was definitely my favourite of, like, the denizens of hell. This is how he's described at the beginning of his chapter. Belphegor loved being organised. He shopped at Satan Max so often for office supplies that he had a membership card. His office boardroom had a wall-sized dry erase board with room enough for him to draw up as many big schemes as he wished. He had every coloured marker you could buy, and his erasers were always clean. He only used clean ones, almost obsessively. It was just the nicest way to clean the board if the erasers were already clean as well. Well, good for you, Belphegor. He tries to utilise the teenagers to bring down the new president of hell, Leviathan, and he gives them a bunch of, like, weapons, kind of reminiscent of that scene in Narnia when Santa Claus gives them, like, the swords and the bow and everything. So one gets a sword, one gets a shield, one gets something else, and one of them gets this actual book, which appears in the novel, which I thought was quite a nice touch. And it does come up because obviously they look at the book and they're like, oh, this is about us, and it's not called it's not got the same title. It's Belphegor's autobiography, but it's actually about them. And they want to skip to the end, only they're like, no, don't spoil the ending. We'll find out as we go along. And Satan appears at one point, gets hold of the book and reads the end, and he's like, oh, you're gonna love the ending. So there's, like, a lot of nice touches like that I found very pleasing. Satan appears occasionally in the novel. He's not really in any position of power anymore. He's just like chilling, living his life. And he meets one of the characters called Steve, who I think is the superhero one, Stephen. And Stephen is described at the beginning as being like a metalhead poser, so emo/goth mix of contradictions, basically. He also has a heartogram pendant, like the hymn heartogram pendant. Does anyone remember that? There used to be this group of teenagers back in the noughties who were like emo/baby bat, and who thought that love metal was a good idea. And I was one of them for 5 minutes. I did actually used to have a heartogram pendant. I didn't ever wear it, I think. I don't even know what happened to it. I think it probably self-combusted out of shame. Anyway, Satan has there's a part of the book where Stephen spends time with Satan and he gets him to listen to, like, real heavy metal music. Morbid Angel comes up a lot in this. So he gets him to listen to, like, the first Morbid Angel album and gives him a t-shirt with a band name on it that looks like a pile of sticks and combat trousers and army boots, so he has the proper metalhead attire. Well done, Stephen. Satan even has a battle vest with, like, patches on it, which is quite... And I like thinking of... I honestly really like this version of Satan as a sort of, hardcore metalhead. I like it. I also have a battle vest. This is what I have on the back of it. Just, FYI. All the time this is going on, the shooter from the school at the beginning also dies and goes to hell, and he finds that he can actually kill people in hell, and I think he shoots both arms off their guide, so he starts off with, like, just one arm and then he loses the other arm. Doesn't seem to bother him much. Okay. But he follows them and kills the denizens of hell until he gets to Belphegor, and Belphegor ties him to a chair. And then, the rest of the story occurs. So, all in all, I did actually genuinely enjoy this. There's a lot of really nice touches to it. Like every single chapter is chapter number 666. In fact, all the pages in this novel are also numbered 666. I don't know if you can see. But yeah, no matter what page is in the book, they're all 666. So I thought that was a nice touch. A lot of cliches get played with. I didn't laugh out loud at any moment. Like, this book is funny, but not laugh out loud kind of funny. As opposed to Chuck Palahniuk's book, which I thought was vaguely amusing, but like not funny specifically. I found a lot of it confusing, especially Madison's character. Like, I really didn't like her. I didn't really understand what her purpose was, really. Because like Belphegor kind of gives this group of teenagers a purpose, and obviously their purpose is also to visit all of hell. Madison, I don't know, the story kind of goes backs and forwards between her time in hell and her recollection of what her life was like. And there is this really odd storyline, because her parents are always adopting children from, like, you know, poor countries, because it gives them a lot of press. Only then they send these children away to boarding schools and never hear about them again. And they adopt this boy from Eastern Europe, I think. And he's, like, very cold and emotionless. And Madison just completely falls in love with him. And I don't really understand why. It's just weird. It's just a very weird novel. I don't think it was particularly funny. And like I said, Madison does go on a lot. Like I said, she's always quoting from literature. There's a scene where she's climbing up a giant woman, and she keeps like referencing Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels over and over again. It's really tedious. And at the end of this, I was like, yeah, okay, Chuck, I get it. You read Jonathan Swift. Well done, you. What? So the characters are also a bunch of annoying teens, but they basically just boil down to their personalities. Like, you've got the nerdy one, you've got the footballer type one, you've got the punk one, and the kind of pretty girl with, you know, well manicured but fake shoes. The fake shoes are very important, remember that. I don't know why, but apparently it's important. The only one I really did like was the punk guy, whose name I wish I could remember. I thought he was a pretty good character, but I'm damned if I can remember why. I don't know. But I did quite like him. At the end of this novel, he also seems to have... Like, we actually get to find out how he died, and there is a scene of what happens when he dies, which the other characters don't get that, so I thought maybe there's something more to this character. There is a sequel to this novel called Doomed, which I have, there it is. I haven't read it yet, because I couldn't be bothered. I haven't been able to find the strength yet. I don't know, maybe I will, maybe I won't, we'll see. Satan in this is a glorified chauffeur and also terrible writer. Because honestly, when that scene came around and he like tells Madison, oh, I wrote your whole life. And I was like, could you really think of nothing better than writing this boring teenager? Like, is that the best you can do, Satan? I'm disappointed. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was the covers. I know I don't normally talk about the covers, but this one, honestly, best cover of anything I've seen in 2020. I love this character's face. He just looks so angry, evil. I mean, he kind of looks angry but also blasé at the same time. And the t-shirt Satan Rules, which looks like it's kind of pink in the lighting. Really good cover. I really like this one. This looks like a cheap tattoo. I mean, I don't want to poke at anyone's artistic styles or choices, I prefer Vince Kramer's one. So to sum this up, both of these books give an interesting description of hell. I found Vince Kramer's one more pleasing, even though Chuck Palahniuk's one had interesting things in it. Like, I did like the thing about the call centre. That was the thing that really kind of won me over. The characters, all a bunch of annoying teens, only one of which is interesting in Chuck Palahniuk's novel. I don't know, like, the thing about Vince Kramer's Hell of Death, the characters don't, like, there's no real character development in either of these novels apart from maybe Madison in this one, but they don't really, there's not really enough character development to say whether or not I liked any of them. I think amusing things happen to them. Vince Kramer did make an attempt to make them more interesting by like adding the superhero element, this character who's like got superhero powers and who's trying to get in with the like official proper superheroes and kind of fails because frogs aren't very glamorous in the superhero world, I imagine. And also the vampire girl, I thought she was pretty amusing. The pacing is pretty slow in Damned, which is mostly due to the fact that Madison keeps having all of these flashbacks to what her boring as hell life was like before she died. And every time one of these chapters came up, I was like, oh, I want to read about hell. I don't want to read about a boring 13-year-old. And Hell of Death does move along very quickly. So thank you for that. That's much appreciated. Both of these books are pretty cliche. Vince Kramer's one knows that it's cliche. Like, there is a proper acknowledgement of, yeah, I'm a cliche, so what? And also anger about, no, this particular cliche is just a coincidence or whatever. You've also got the thing about the metalheads, like the posers versus the real, genuine metalheads, which is quite a niche thing to reference. Obviously, if you're part of that world like me, then you understand it. But I don't know, like, I know if I give this to my dad, he's not going to get it. But okay, why not? It's nice to have novels that cater to specific audiences like me. So thank you for that. And then the endings. This one, the ending is just weird. Like, when Satan tells Madison, oh, you're just a figment of my imagination, I wrote your whole life. I mean, that was kind of supposed to be the big reveal moment, the big plot twist at the end, but I honestly didn't care. Like, I was like, yeah, so? Like I said, can't you think of anything better than that? This one, the ending's a bit odd. I mean, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect, because when you're reading a Bizarro novel or anything that's kind of written in this, surreal way, you don't know what to expect. Like, anything can happen, basically. Anything weird and crazy. But the ending, it kind of had this odd feel-good ending about it, which I thought was bizarre, but okay. So, in conclusion, I did vastly prefer Vince Kramer's novel, Hell of Death, for a lot of reasons. Like I said, this has a sequel, there's a part 2, so I don't know what to expect. Madison ends up being stuck on Earth because she didn't return to Hell when Halloween was over, and I think in the first novel she goes to haunt people or something like that. Like, I don't know. This is not the kind of novel that demands a sequel, and honestly I hope it doesn't get one, because I would just be very happy with this being a one-off. I am very happy to have this in my collection of weird and hell comedy related things. So voila. So that's it for this video. Congratulations if you made it this far. And yeah, don't hesitate to comment, share, subscribe, and tell me what you thought. If you want to see my face talking about other things than books, I now have another channel called Payanna Night, which I'll link in the description, where I talk about my life, my makeup, my clothes. I talk about everything that's non-book related, basically, so do go check that out.